over the last week or so, we've been working through this process of leading well and understanding. Last week, we kind of kicked off the main thrust of this, was understanding that leading well begins with leading myself. I have to learn to lead myself before I can lead others. And so most of the time, we're like, I want to be a better mom. I want to be a better dad. I want to be better at this or that. But what we have to focus on is I want to be a better me. And if I can fix the better me, then the other things take care of themselves. The other things will fix itself. So therefore, I'm not saying you need to be better at this. No, you need to be a better you. You need to learn to lead yourself better. And last week we talked about grace, talked about salvation. And that was a powerful start. We talked about the book of Timothy and how Paul worked through Timothy in 3 different areas. And just to kind of catch you up for those that weren't here, you have to walk through these questions. And so when we're working on ourselves, it's all about the questions that we need to ask and the questions we need to answer about ourselves. So last week, these were the questions. That God created me and designed me for His purpose. Is that an understanding? So grace has given me my personality, my gifts, my talents. So what I have to start beginning to ask is, what has God created me unique to do? Every one of us in this room is unique in their own way. God adopted and broke a broken and flawed child. We use the illustration of him pulling up to an orphanage. And you didn't do anything. God walked in and chose you. God walked in and said, get in the car. Yeah, but I know who you are. And that's one of the most amazing things about when God chooses us, is that God chooses us knowing all the flaws that we have, knowing everything that we're sitting there saying, no, you can't love me. I don't even love myself. That's why it has to begin with God. Because you don't have the ability to like yourself. When you look in the mirror and you think of all that you've done and all that you've said and the places and stuff that you don't even ever want anybody to know about. And even in your whole lifetime, you probably won't even tell that testimony. Because it just doesn't help nobody. We all have places. But understanding that God knew all that, and yet God said, I pick you. I pick you. Why? Just because I have chosen to love you. We walk through these questions. So another one was simply this. The whole plan of salvation is God's plan. It's not yours. It's not your decision. This is God choosing you, wanting to make something of you. He now sees me through Jesus and has kingdom work for me to do. And I can't do what He wants me to do. It's beyond my abilities. So if you look at the person beside you right now and say, I can't do any of the stuff he's talking about. Good, you qualify. What do you mean, I qualify? Good, you qualify. Because there's not anything in that book I've ever read that I can look at and say, well, I can do that. Sure, I got that. No. Even the 10 Commandments, when you break the 10 Commandments, we did a study on the 10 Commandments. When you break that down, I mean, we say don't kill somebody. Don't kill them with your words. Don't kill them with your thoughts. Don't kill. Well, I can't. No. But God chose, and He says, okay, if you can accept, I'm going to give you my abilities, but I can't do this. Then it moves you in to the part of the filling and the empowerment of the Holy Spirit then enables me to bear fruit that didn't come from me. Jesus said it this way, I am the vine and you are the branches. You are not the tree. I'm not asking you to produce anything. I'm asking you to be attached to me. And if you're attached to me, through me you will produce fruit. Brother, like, it can't be that simple. Well, it's not as simple as it, because that stuff flowing through you now is going to be different than the stuff you used to have. And so now, all of a sudden, the fruit that used to come so naturally, you're going to have to realize, okay, I'm producing different kinds of fruit now. And it's different, and it's more difficult in some ways because my flesh doesn't like it, but it's great in other ways because I actually feel like I'm doing something good. Finally, we studied that I am completely dependent on God to fulfill ultimately His plan. This is where we begin. So tonight, in this understanding of living well, it's not just what I accept. So everything we taught last week was the first part of this grace understanding of what I have to accept about Jesus. What He's done for me, what God's done for me, how He's brought me into the family, how He saved me. Now we begin the second part of this, understanding how this grace, how this work is going through me, and how it's ministering to me. Here again, we're not ministering to others yet. We're ministering to ourselves. Just ourselves, listening, growing, becoming. So tonight, go with me in your Bibles to John 3, verses 22 through 30. John 3, 22 through 30. And so the second part of learning to live or leading yourself well is to learn to live in this place. You're going to have to learn to live in what God has created in you. Learn to remain in it. Learn to stay in it. Learn to not pull out of it. I know people will say all the time, well, you know, you can't lose, you know, you can't be plucked from Jesus' hand. Yeah, but it also says you can fall away. What's he talking about? He's saying, as long as you have made a decision to stay with me, nothing can ever separate us. But not one moment in your life have you ever been created as an agent to where you're a slave. Every one of you in this room has a free choice tonight. You can decide when you leave here tonight to go do something horribly dumb. And you know what God will do? Nothing. It's not going to stop you. Why? Because He has given you the opportunity and a choice to say, if you will remain in me, if you will abide in me, if you will walk in my light. He uses these phrases all through. If you will remain, if you will abide, if you will, what's He saying? Stay connected to me, and here's what happens. You learn to live in me. You learn to live in me. Why is that important? Why, when I'm leading myself well, why is it so important? Well, let's read John 3, 22 through 30, and I'll show you. After this, Jesus and His disciples went out into the Judean countryside, where He spent some time with them and baptized. And now John also was baptizing at Aenon near Salim, because there was plenty of water and people were coming and being baptized. This was before John was put into prison. An arrogant argument developed between some of John's disciples and a certain Jew over the matter of the ceremonial washing. And they came to John and said to him, Rabbi, that man who was with you on the other side of the Jordan, the one you testified about, look, he is baptizing and everyone is coming to him. Now what he's doing here is he's pulling at John to decide, and this is going to affect John. You would say, well this doesn't, how's this? What he's saying is, John, for the last several years, you've been the man. Everybody's come to John. John's been the rock star. If you wanted to hear or to be baptized, you went to the Jordan. And you went to John. And John was standing there just giving them fits, man. And just he was rolling. But all of a sudden now, Jesus has come along. And guess what's happening to John's crowd? It's getting smaller. It's getting smaller. Even the water's drying up where he used to baptize. He's got to go to another place now to find deep water. Everything's going wrong. It seems like everything is changing on him. And the Pharisee, one of the little young Pharisees, decides it's a good time to jab at him. Good time to take a swing at him. And so he says, you know, John, you did all this baptizing. You remember that guy you baptized a while back? The one you kept talking about and you baptized him? Well, you know what's happening now? He's over there and he's got thousands following him, John. You've got these few folks left and he's got thousands now. Man, he is outdoing you by a mile. That hurts. Especially, I mean, in ministry, where the business or the work that I do, man, that's the hardest ego trip to kill. Because the first thing a preacher's going to do when he meets you is say, how many are you running? How's your church doing? How you been doing? Man, we've been blowing it up over here. And you're like, Okay. Oh, man, we had a revival, lasted 18 weeks. I'm like, wow. I barely get folks come to church. But it is, isn't it? If somebody looks at you and says, if you're a young person and you're not married yet, or your life isn't where it be, and first thing they're going to ask you, how's it going? How you doing? How's life? And the worst thing is they turn around and say, oh, just got a job over here. Let me show you my ring. And you're like, really? You smile, you go through the motion. When you turn around, I know exactly, just like me, the first thing, God, come on. Come on. What did I do wrong? And this is what's happening to John. I want you to see that picture because this isn't some accident. This is in the Bible written out so you would have the true feeling. Eventually, John will be in prison and it will be bothering John so badly. It's going to bother him so badly that he's going to send some of his disciples to Jesus and ask Jesus, are you the one we're supposed to be looking for, or we need to go look for another? Remember? Because I'm going to tell you something, being knocked down, being discouraged, life not going the way you want it. Maybe nobody ever goes through that, but I do. And when you do, you start questioning everything. John did. And John was one of the mightiest men that ever lived. So don't think of yourself as something, well, I'm just not that good. No, John the Baptist struggled at being able to live in, to be able to stay in. Oh, it's all fun when you're baptized and a dove comes down. But when you're sitting in prison and they're thinking about cutting your head off, you start questioning, did I make the right choice? Did I pick the right? And so John is going through this mindset in this section. But listen to how John handles this, and I want you to see this. To this John replied, a person can receive only what is given them from heaven. You yourselves can testify that I said, I am not the Messiah, but I am sent ahead of him. The bride belongs to the bridegroom. The friend who attends the bridegroom waits and listens for him and is full of joy when he hears the bridegroom's voice. That joy is mine, and it is now complete. He must become greater, and I must become less. You see how hard, there has to be a mindset that John understood. Okay, this is part of the process. God has to become greater in my life. And I have to become less for Him to fulfill everything He wants to do. Otherwise, somewhere in the journey, you're going to get real discouraged because God took a left and you thought you were supposed to take a right. God, this is not what I asked. This is not what I signed up for. This is not why I picked you. Oh, I like the first part, where I am accepted and I'm the orphan that gets loved on. Man, but that's gone. That feeling's gone. Now I feel like I'm sometimes, do you even know me? Do you even realize that I'm here? I feel like I'm getting weaker and my family's getting worse, it seems like, and my relationships seem to be struggling. This is real. This is the leadership you have to do, because before you go tell someone else how to live, you must learn to walk through this. I hate the fact that we see somebody get saved 2 weeks, we already make them a deacon or we make them something. I'm like, no, don't do that. There's some things that you're going to have to walk through. Every one of us do. And let's be honest, some of us dropped out of church during that season and then came back and then thought, well, look, I'm not mad at you. I'm telling you, it's part of growing into a leader. It's not just all. Some of it is up and then all of a sudden, man. So John says, I understand who I am. I'm a friend of the one who is really important. I'm just his friend. And he's going to get greater, but I have to get less. It's the process. If I can understand it in my life, if somebody says, oh, pastor, and I'm like, no. God is getting better and better and better. I'm just getting older and grayer and slower, but that's okay. Because for 20 or 30 years, I have run good. But the race was never about me. I'm going to tag somebody later and say, that you're it. Run hard, man. Get out there at that volleyball court and break a leg. Because if I got out there, I would break my leg. But that's understanding that, God, what I want you to do is to use me, not like the world does, but I want you to pull from me all the valuable. Let me give you some questions as we walk through this. Here's some questions I want to wonder, do you ask? And the first three, I want to ask, raise your hand if you're like, all right, these are questions I ask a lot. Am I successful? Am I really successful in my life? If you say, all right, that's a question I ask a good bit, put a check by it. Do you ask this question very often? Am I achieving what I think I should? Am I really living up to my potential? Am I really where I ought to be? If that's a question you wrestle in your mind all the time, like I always used to have to fight for years, like I always felt like I'm 8 years behind where I thought I should be. Like I should be way ahead of where I am. I should be. For some of us, that's the question we pound in our head all the time. Some of us pound, I'm just not, man, I'm just a failure at everything. I'm not successful at anything. Some of us pound in our head, am I achieving? Am I where I should be? I feel like I'm failing. How about this question? Am I doing as good as others? Do I find myself looking at somebody else that does what I do, or somebody else in my family, or someone else, and I'm like, really? I don't even want to go to that. Because I don't want them to even ask me what I'm doing. Because I feel like in my life, I'm not doing as good as others. How many of y'all put check marks by most of those? Anybody? Okay. That needs to transform. Nothing wrong with that, because I ask those questions. I have to fight those. But they need to transform into these questions. Here's three. Am I following Jesus? That's just a question I need to ask. In my life, I've learned to transition these questions from goal-oriented to relationship-oriented. So the first question I ask myself in the morning is not, Tim, how are we doing, among preachers and among churches? No. All right, am I still following Jesus? Do I still love Him the way number two, am I doing what He called me to do? The thing that I know He wants me to do. Maybe at first it's just, hey, I know He wants me to be consistent in going to church. And it seems like everybody wants to spend the night on the weekend at my house every time I decide I'm going to start being. It can be as small, or it could be just, I need to start praying. Before I go to bed every night, I need to pray. I need to read my Bible once a day. I just need to do that. The questions don't become how awesome am I, how am I achieving. Am I just simply doing what He's called me to do? I know it's hard to believe. When I was 19 years old, starting out and all this stuff, that's all I did. I worked in a grocery store, in a produce, got there at 5 in the morning till almost 10 or 11. I set the ice rack. It was 36 feet of ice. That was my job. Setting all the broccoli, setting all that pretty stuff you see, and all that ice. And then I would go from there, and I'd go to the church. And I'd take a pillow off one of the chairs, and I'd lay it on the floor at the altar, and I'd just lay down. And I'd go to sleep. I'd wake up, and I'd read. I'd wake up, and I'd pray some. I just kind of stayed there until it was time to go home. And I'm going to tell you something. I miss those days probably more than I miss anything. Because the bigger and the more you get in life, you start having kids and this, you start questioning a lot. Am I doing exactly what I need to be doing? Am I actually following Jesus? Or am I just surviving? Or am I? It was so simple then. It was like, Tim, just spend time with me. I can do that. I can do that. So am I doing what He called me to do? And number three, am I becoming less and Jesus becoming more in my life? And is my life lived in such a way, me walking with Him, spending time with Him, doing, that people and others, and even myself, I start to notice, the stuff that used to mean something don't mean anything, and the stuff that used to bother me doesn't bother me anymore. And I used to get so stressed out about that, but you know what? That's going to be okay. I'm getting less. Less worried about me. Less worried about... And he's becoming more. He's becoming more. Last night we were standing outside of the place to eat, and we were in a bigger city, so there was homeless people, a lot of schizophrenics at night, and so I'm used to that. And so I'm standing there, Lisa's standing there by me, and one of the guys walked across the street, and I knew when he was coming, he was already having 8 conversations going on at the same time, and I was like, okay. And you could see everybody else kind of like going in the restaurant, like different things, and I just stood there, and he came by, and he would mumble some, and he'd say something like, happy. And I said, yeah. And I just looked at him and I said, that's what God called us to be, is happy. And he'd say, right. And he'd go off to mumbling again. And he would say, and Elise was like, I wonder what, and eventually he said, Marines. And somewhere in his life he'd been, and he would start speaking that, and I said, yeah, military. And he's like, yeah. And he would just skip these subjects, and for long, he just looked at me and he stopped. And he stuck his fist out and he said, good. And I just fist bumped him and I said, yeah, we're good. And my wife was just standing there like, watching. I'm like, we're good. And he just walked on. And I thought, God, but see, am I getting less? Am I less worried about me and more worried about what God wants to do? I don't ever want to lose that. Because the more I worry about me and less about God, the more miserable life becomes. I can't do enough, get enough to make me happy. But when I can lose me, all of a sudden, God brings this happiness. Some guy out in the middle of the street, here I am crying tonight because I met this guy. And I'm like, that was so awesome. And that's what God wants. Because God wanted to meet him. God wanted to say something to him. God wanted to... And God said, Tim, I got you here. So in our lives, when we're making these questions, you're going to have to decide which questions you ask. Is it goal-oriented? Is it success-oriented? Or is it relational-oriented? If you'll change it, you'll find that you'll be a lot more connected to God if you'll ask those kind of questions. Now let me show you what the results will be when you do that, as you've got the list there. If I'm asking the wrong questions, then I'm going to get the wrong results. And here's what happens. Do you have a deep sense of peace about your life? The closer you are, the more peace. The less peace. So you have to be honest with yourself. I want you to be honest with yourself on these questions as you're looking at that. I want you to ask yourself, how much peace do you really have? I ain't talking about go out this weekend and have fun and smile till 2 o'clock, but then I'm talking about when you go home at 2 o'clock. When the door closes, when you wake up the next morning, are you happy with your life, your direction, do you have peace? Are you thankful for what you have? I preached a whole bunch of messages just recently on that. Are you thankful for what you have? Or I just hadn't got there yet. Are you able to be honest about weaknesses? Are you able to find people in your life? Is there people in your life that you can be honest with about your weaknesses? Are there people that you call friends that you can say, hey, can I just talk to you? I know you're not going to judge me, I know, but I need to just share where I'm not strong. Doesn't make me a bad person. Remember, I know God's already accepted me, He loves me, He likes me, I'm running with Him, but it doesn't mean I'm all what I want to be. But how many people do you have that you could just tonight say, hey, can I be honest with you? Today hadn't been good. That's one of the greatest things that I get from the church is while I'm walking around, a lot of times I'll just ask people, how'd your day go? And some will say, not too good today. And I say, well, tell me about it. Or if I have time, But just the fact that they're willing to say, hey, Pastor, I can be honest with you. And you're not going to say, oh, well, you need to cheer up, praise God, get your cheer. No. Some days I don't feel like just cheering up. Some days it's been a bad day. And so it's okay to find people that you can look at and say, yeah, man, keep me in your prayers. Or could I ask you a question? Because I don't think I did that right. It's okay to have friends and people that you can be weak around because you know they're going to be strong. Now, don't go just telling everybody. Don't go put it on Facebook. That's a bad strategy. But do you have people that you can be weak around? Are you at ease asking for forgiveness when you make a fault? Do you find it easy, like me, as I'm going through the day and I may flub something or man, I cut a lease off and I shouldn't have done that and I had to ask forgiveness and it's like I'm sorry. I'm sorry. That was not the way I wanted. Or is it like, well, they deserved it. See, if you're still goal-oriented and achievement-oriented, it's always their fault for not. But if you're connected, you got different juices flowing through you, and it becomes easier to say, my bad, my bad. I think God, that's like our number one phrase to each other. God's like, love you, Tim, and my phrase is, my bad. Love you, Tim, my bad. My bad. I'm a long ways from where I was, but what would it be like if I couldn't, I messed up. I ain't even going to church this weekend. What do you mean you ain't going to church this weekend? Building probably fall down on me if I went. No. How at ease can you be asking God, Lord, forgive me? For some of you in this room right now, that's all you need to do to take some of the weight off of you, is just simply say, Lord, I didn't say that right. That's been bothering me. Forgive me. How easy can you do that? Things that didn't go the way you thought, things that didn't happen the way you was hoping. How well can you handle disappointment? Does it really frustrate you? I mean, if something just went wrong in the morning tomorrow, think about it. If you got up, got dressed, maybe walked outside, and now because it's rain, you start to walk out, and all of a sudden you got your clothes on, and one foot goes about this deep into a water. Be honest with me. What would be your reaction? Somebody said they would sing God Bless America. God bless America. I don't know if that's exactly what he meant, but that's what he said he would do. God bless America. But really, it's life, isn't it? And it's like, it's not that disappointments aren't coming. It's that when I do it, it's like, oh, Shazam, man, come on. Now I got to go change shoes and socks, and I don't have time for this, and the outfit don't match the shoes now, so now I got to change the outfit. If I'm a woman, you know what I'm talking about, because my wife has stepped in a mud hole before. I'm like, that's a 45-minute mud hole right there. That's a 45-minute mud hole. It happens. How much can you enjoy team in your life? How much can you enjoy just being with others, laughing, being part of a group? Just realizing, man, we're all in this thing together. We're just a team. How well can you look for God's direction in all of it? If you step in the mud and things go wrong, God, I don't know why this, but maybe there's going to be a wreck up ahead and I would have been right in the middle. I don't know. I just know that if this was what you ordained, or if I was just me, either way, you make all things work for good to those who love you. Maybe I'm supposed to meet somebody today that likes red instead of white tennis shoes. And when I meet them today, that's going to start a conversation. They're going to become my best friend in the next 2 years. All because I didn't wear the white ones today. And they're like, man, I love them red tennis shoes. Thank you. What's your name? And you never know. Can I pray regularly for God's work to be coming out of me on a regular basis? Can I pray that? Can I consistently ask God? See, this is what it means to live in. To be real, to live in God. Now, we understand what the acceptance is, and we understand what forgiveness is, and the orphan that gets, okay, and we were horrible people, but we're clean. We've been saved. We've been set apart, put into the family of God. But even then, we have to work at living in that. It doesn't come natural. It's a process, right? It is. And you're going to have to work at living in it. You're going to have to change your attitude, words, different things. So let's see what then happens if we can learn to live in it. If we can, then we have something to offer others. We have something to offer others. Go with me to 1 Corinthians 8, 1 through 13. Here's what it says. Now, about food sacrifices to idols, we know that we all possess knowledge. So understanding that when you got saved, and now you're hooked in, and now you're grafted in, you're part of the vine, of a branch off of the main trunk of the tree, and you're producing fruit, you are gaining knowledge. There's things you've learned. Now, how much? Don't know. Depends on how much you've walked, how much you've grown, but you're learning, consistently learning, either by your mistakes or either by choosing the right path, but you're learning. And here's what he says, everybody has knowledge, but knowledge puffs up while love builds up. Those who think they know something do not yet know as they ought to know, but whoever loves God is known by God. So he says there's a level to where you fill in and you're fitted in to where love and the fruits that you're producing become the most powerful things in your life. Most of us just try to know something. Like, you need to go to church. Why? Because you need to. And that's usually where we get stuck, right? Because you don't want to go to hell. What's hell going to be like? I don't know. I'll ask Pastor Lott. We had one of our little 4-year-olds, or whatever was in the service with us the other day. We don't do a lot of services where we got every age group, and they were talking about that. And one of them was in there, like 4 or 5-year-old, and they was listening to the sermons, during the revival. And of course, the revivals are built for more mature. So they're preaching about different things, and you don't want to die without the Lord and all this kind of stuff. So that became the thought. They turned around and talked to the grandmother or that they had, and they were like, I don't want to die. I don't want to go to heaven. I don't want to do it. And it's like, okay, that might be a little bit too much. Because when I grew up in that, I'm thinking, no wonder I'm warped. I was 2 years old underneath a pew hearing people, you're going to die, you're going to go to hell. If the righteous scarcely make it. Lord, what does that put me? If Paul and Peter barely got in, where are you? I'm doomed. I can tell you where I am. I am doomed. There was no kids' church growing up. So I think about that. We all have knowledge, but what amount of knowledge? What amount of knowledge do we have? And Paul is saying that. He says, listen, so then about eating food sacrificed to idols, we know that an idol is nothing at all in the world, and that there is no God but one. For even if there are so-called gods, whether in heaven or in earth, as indeed there are many gods and many lords, yet for us there is but one God, the Father, from whom all things come and whom we live, and there is but one Lord, Jesus Christ, through whom all things came and through whom we live. But not everyone possesses this knowledge or this amount of knowledge. Some people are still so accustomed to idols that when they eat sacrificial food, they think of it as having been sacrificed to a god. And since their conscience is weak, it is defiled. But food does not bring us near to God. We are no worse if we do not eat, and no better if we do eat it. Be careful, however. Now, that's amazing. Paul said, let me explain something to you. Personally, he said, if I go into that steakhouse, and the best-looking piece of meat, they said, Now this came from the idol such and such. Give me that one. Paul's like, doesn't mean nothing to me. I don't believe in the wood carvings y'all have already done and all that stuff. He said, I'll take the good piece of meat. He said, that's the way he thinks. A steak's a steak. And if you say, well, we got this over here and this a little bitty, I'll take the good stuff. No matter what you offered it to, it doesn't mean anything to me because there is no other God but one God. And that's Paul's understanding. But he said, listen, be careful, however, that the exercise of your rights does not become a stumbling block to the weak. For if someone with a weak conscience sees you with all your knowledge eating at an idol's temple, won't that person be emboldened to eat what is sacrificed to idols? So when they turn around and eat it, they would be eating it realizing, I'm eating something offered to a god. You're eating it thinking it came off a cow. But their knowledge is not where yours is. And so how does Paul work with this? So this weak brother or sister of whom Christ died is destroyed by your knowledge. Now that's amazing. My knowledge is what's killing them. What I know can hurt somebody else. So just like me, if I said, all right, I'm going to the casino next weekend. Now don't get me wrong, they ain't getting 10 cents of my money because I'm smart enough to know not to put a dime in that thing. But they got them $19.99 crab legs. Now if they gonna give me cheap crab legs, I don't care if them crab legs been prayed over, washed over, whatever. They crab legs. And you know what? If they $19.99 for all I can eat, the brother's in it. Do you know how many of those I've eaten? Never been in a casino. You know why? Because if Pastor Lot walked out with that big old bib on that said, I ate 40 crabs or whatever, I got that big lobster bib and I walk out like, oh man. Somebody walking in that's been to all seasons one time, and they're walking in with their roll of quarters, and they see me, they go, well, Pastor Lot, see? Look at it. He's smart enough to know this is where you make your money double. He's a smart man. Look at him. He's all happy and look at him. He probably won $100 in there. They don't know I didn't spend but $19.99. But they walk in with that and they spend their whole check because Pastor Lot went in and that must mean it's okay. My knowledge got them killed. It can work that way with a beer. It could work that way with a cigarette. It could work. If you were to give me a beer and I drank a sip of beer, I'm not dying and going to hell. But I could easily send someone there because I'm entertaining something that has no value. Me, I'm not going to go buy 6-packs and 12-packs and do. And you, as you grow, you don't grow to just do better. You grow in knowledge to where you realize why I do what I do. I don't do that. Not because it's right. People want to argue over these things. I'm like, well, the Bible says you can do this. It says drink in moderation, do all this. Well, I don't do it at all. Why? Because I don't want to be a stumbling block to no one. It's not a law that I'm trying to, or some ritual or some rule that I'm trying to. It's my love for the other people. It's because I love them. I wouldn't want them to ever get into something. Because I've known people to lose everything in a casino, go home, lose their business, and commit suicide. I don't want somebody to say, they used to go to my church. I don't want someone to get cancer from something and think, well, Pastor Lot said it was okay. No. Pastor Lot told you, no. Don't play with that. Why? Because it won't bring you what you're looking for. Does that make sense? This is what Paul is saying. He's saying, look, I can eat that steak. But listen to what he says. You'll sin against them in this way and wound their weak conscience. Your sin against Christ. Therefore, if what I eat causes my brother or sister to fall into sin, I will never eat meat again, so that I will not cause them to fall. There's certain things I will never do, not because I'm trying to tell you, oh, this is this. I'm not going to do it because of the results that it's going to bring into a life. And I'm not going to be responsible for causing that kind of pain. Now, if you can do that in front of your kids and don't care if they become cancer victims or whatever, knock yourself out. I can't. My kids will have to grow up one day and say, you know, I never heard my dad say one cuss word. Never saw my dad drink. I never saw my dad smoke. Never saw my dad hit a casino. Never saw my dad do any of it. Not because I'm special, but because I lived my life trying to be a good example for them. Had nothing to do with me. If it was me, I'm like, Paul, let's go get some crab legs. Believe me, I've been getting some crab legs. But I can't, because it won't produce what I really care about, which is your lives. So, what we offer to others. How do we do this, brother? Go with me to Galatians 2 then, verses 11 through 21. Here's the other verse we've got to read. I've got to hurry. I don't have a clock in here, so I can't see this. Man, we are good. So, here's what it says. When Cephas came to Antioch, I opposed him to his face because he stood condemned. For before certain men came from James and used to eat with the Gentiles, but when they arrived, he began to draw back and separate himself from the Gentiles because he was afraid of those who belonged to the circumcision group. The other Jews joined him in his hypocrisy, so that by their hypocrisy even barbarians was led astray. You can do something you think is good. Peter thought to himself, okay, I'm just going to keep the conflict down. I'm just going to go eat with the Jews because I'm a Jew and they are, and that'll keep. And Paul had to go to him face to face and say, you're doing wrong. You're leading people in the wrong direction. You're telling people over here they're not as good as y'all. One of the things that I hate the most in a church, and I fight it in this one, hopefully I'll keep it beat out like a bad habit, is cliques. I fight it very hard. It's easy to do because we all have friends and we all find groups that we like to be with, and that's fine. I want you to. There's certain people like to eat together and hang out together. That's great. But don't let it become a normal to where everybody else feels excluded. When I'm training my staff, I tell them they have to sit at 4 tables as they're eating. Fix small plates. Eat your plate here. Get up, go get another plate, go sit at another table. Go sit. Why? Because your job is to make sure, if you saw me at Thanksgiving, I walk every table while people are eating. Not because I want to make sure everybody is met, everybody is loved. The more you can make everyone realize they're a part of the same, we're all equal. We're all part of this family together. And Paul said, Peter, you're doing wrong because you're separating the people. You're making one group look better than another, or you're separating. He said, and I can imagine Paul got up in his chin pretty good. Because Paul said, I confronted him boldly. He basically told him, look, you are messing up royally, and had to straighten him out. So understand it this way. If I'm going to offer others, if I'm going to offer things to others, okay, I'm been accepted, I'm living in God, and now I'm trying to learn to offer to others what I have. Here's what has to happen. You have to get off your pedestal first. Now, pedestal can be just as low a pedestal as a big pedestal. Some of y'all don't have much, and you think everybody don't like you, so you just stick your lip out, and you already start from that pedestal. And then some have more, and you start from a higher pedestal. Get off all the pedestals. It don't matter how low you are, how big you are, no matter where you came from, no matter your background, doesn't matter. We're all the same in here. We're all the same in here. That's the way it'll always be. It's the way it has to be. Tyler, that's the way it has to be. Otherwise, it won't work. Secondly, we accept the brokenness of others. Sometimes the worst thing, and when you want to offer something to others, if you can understand I'm accepted, if you can understand that God has to work through me and I'm trying to hang on and I'm living inside the vine, then it's easy to look at someone else when they're not where they ought to be and not look down on them. You begin to accept the brokenness of others. You begin to say, hey, I understand. You've heard how I've preached tonight, and I'll continually say that, guys, I understand. I understand what it feels like. Why? Because I do. If I look at you and say, now look, I don't know what it's like to be where you are. Well, that's the end of our conversation. That's it. If I look at you and say, I have no idea what you're going. But if I say, we all have been in sin. All of us have been lost. All of us have been broken. Let me tell you my story. Then it creates the opening. We treat those we influence better than ourselves. We treat those we influence better. If I'm going to be the biggest influence at all season, then I got to be the biggest servant and the biggest. I got to walk around the tables while you're eating turkey and dressing and making sure you got enough rolls. If you don't, I'll go get you one. And that's okay. Because that's the calling when we look at others better than ourselves. We are generous in our resources. We care about people and their situation. We are humble. Now listen to me, what humble means does not mean that you just walk around like, well, is there anything I can do? You know, that's not humble. Humble just means I am who I am. I'm no bigger, no better. I'm just who I am. Whatever level I'm at, that's where I'm at. I don't make myself more than I am. I don't beat myself up and make myself lower. This is where I'm at. If you have an education, then wonderful. If you have a good job, wonderful. If you have a nice car, wonderful. Whatever you are, be thankful for where you are. Don't like, well, you know, don't badmouth it. Just like, well, God's blessed me. He trusted me with that. I'm glad. We care about people and their situation. We are humble. We bring reconciliation. When you have this attitude, what happens is now you create a communication to where you can reconcile them with Christ, because when they're on the outside, what do you think they fear the most? From who? If they've been feeling rejection from everyone, then how do they feel about God? They feel like God's going to reject me too. I tell people this, and used to for years, I said, you messed up when you came to All Seasons. I said, up until now, you could have walked out and you could have literally said, nobody loves me. I said, you messed up. I said, now you can say, nobody loves me but Pastor Lot. I said, you stuck now. You can't even use your old phrase. You can say, nobody loves me. Well, Pastor Lot loves me. And it changed it because we are agents of reconciliation to people. That if they don't feel like nobody cares and nobody, you care. You will meet them where they are. We pray with and for others then. And we spend a lot of time talking about Jesus. The one who reconciles, the one who loves them, the one they're hooked into, the one their relationship is hooked to. He's what made me who I am. He's who's going to make you what you are. Any questions when it comes to our relationship with others? I want to stop just a second and is any questions when we're dealing with just learning to lead well? Anything come to mind? If not, I'm doing a wonderful job. If not, hands go up everywhere. So when I'm learning to lead well, I'm learning to lead me. Do you see how all of this being a leader? Now imagine this person, if this person was your boss, would you like to work for them? If this person was your dad or your mom, your grandma, would you like to have them in your family? Yeah. This is what we're called to be. If you were these people that you understood how God has grafted you in, you've understood how your relationship with God is holding you and going through you and flowing. Do you understand how now what God's given me, I'm able to give into others' lives? That it's not me, it's God through me. Now let me show you the final part of this, of what it shows. Go with me in your Bibles to John 10, verses 7 through 13. If I can get these things down, then what I become is a benefit to others, which is really what you want your life to be. Every person in this room wants one thing. When they have lived their days and done their time, they want to know their life was a benefit to others. I don't care if you're Bill Gates and you become the richest man in the world. As you start getting older, you know what you start doing? Giving it away. Building schools in Africa. Do it. Why? Because you start to realize the only thing that really matters is the impact I had on my kids, on my family, on my friends, my words. 20 years from now, the greatest thing you could ever say about Pastor Lott is, boy, I know if Pastor Lott was here right now, this is exactly what he would say. What does that mean? It means I've put something in you that's benefited your life. Somebody was showing me a picture of a kid the other day, and they had been going to a church. They were a little one. And the church they've been going to has a lot of older ladies. So when she's praying, she prays like one of them older ladies. Because that's all she knows how to pray. And she'll walk around the house and she's got her a red rag and she ties it under, like the ladies, you got to have that over your head, and she walks around like that, and she'll pray like that. And I thought to myself, you don't realize how many people watch you and how many people will imitate you one day. You won't realize how many people will imitate you one day. So in John 10, beginning at verse 7, here's what it says. Therefore Jesus said again, verily, truly, I tell you, I am the gate for the sheep. All who have come before me are thieves and robbers, but the sheep have not listened to them. I am the gate. Whoever enters through me will be saved. I will come in and go out. They will come in and go out and find pasture. The thief comes only to steal, to kill, and destroy. But I have come that you may have life and to have it to the full. I am the good shepherd. The good shepherd lays down his life for the sheep. The hired hand is not the shepherd and does not own the sheep. So when he sees the wolf coming, he abandons the sheep and runs away. When the wolf attacks the flock and scatters it, the man runs away because he is a hired hand and cares nothing for the sheep. There are three types of people that Jesus describes. Now, of course, we know that Jesus is the ultimate shepherd. He's the one we're hooked into, the one we're trying to imitate. But in a smaller sense, every one of us is supposed to show that type of love to those that we come in contact with. Now, I'm not saying we'll ever get to where Jesus did. That's not. But if His blood is flowing through us and the same Spirit that was in Him is in us, then we have to be definitely distinguishable between the three characters. He said, first off, there's thieves and robbers. Thieves and robbers are people that just simply, for their own gain and their own purpose and their own whatever they can get from it, they hang out with you. Anybody ever have friends like that? long as you had something to drink in the refrigerator, they were coming over. As long as you were doing something and it was fun and it was free, man, they're coming over. You know them because your life is always less when they leave. If you can't figure out who they are, like, I don't know, think. When they're gone, do you worry more that the police are going to show up now than you did before? Last night I wasn't worried about it. This morning, I don't know what they may have hid in my house. Can we just be real? Some of y'all got friends like, I don't. I'm just saying, I've just heard of people like this. I had, for years, the narcotics agents that would spy out houses knew me. So they knew that people would call me at all hours of the night. Let's say some guy got high on crystal. Well, he would call me after he'd done beat his wife up. 2 in the morning, he calls Pastor Lott. Pastor Lott, you got to come over. So I come over, and I would tell the NAR, I said, listen, if y'all see my vehicle pull up, and it pulls out, I said, you give me 3 miles before you pull me over. I said, because I probably got something in the car. And I would go in, and they would hand me these things. I don't know what they are. I've never used metal pipes with stuff looked like a piece of bubble gum glued on the end. I don't know what that was. I didn't ask. Pastor, you got to take this. You got to get rid of it. Man, whatever. Just give it. His wife sitting there, and we pray and get everybody situated, and I would leave. But you got friends and people in your life and things in your life. You got to ask yourselves, is that going to make my life better or worse? There are some people in your life, even though they've been your buddies since high school, listen to me, all they're going to do is steal from you. And I'm sorry. I wish I could say it in a different way, but as long as you keep entertaining that, you're going to find that things will be lost. Things will keep coming up lost. Relationships, things will keep getting lost. There's a second group that he talks about. This second group is called hired hands. Now, hired hands are not bad people. They just not going to die for you. They're there. They'll probably even pray with you. Hey, just want you to know I'm praying with you. But then you said, hey, would you come to my house next week and let's do, well, you know, I'm real busy. In other words, I'm with you, but not sacrificially. I'm with you. I care about you, and they do. As long as it doesn't cost a lot. As long as they don't have to tote very much. As long as they don't have to deal with very much. And so you're going to run into people in your lives and friends that are going to be, man, they're fun when things are fun. Anybody got friends like this? When things are good, they're fun to be with. No problem. It's just when things get bad. I know this because when someone ends up in a hospital, if you want to know who these people are, if you want to know the first two, get put in a hospital. And watch how many people of that group does not come see you. They've been at your house all week. They've done everything. But as soon as you got sick, here come all these church folks come visiting me, praying for me. You'd be amazed how that list slims down. As long as it doesn't cost me anything, as long as it doesn't require anything, I'm here for the fun. I'm here to be your friend. But I'm not going to die for you. I'm not going to pay a price for you. Finally, he says, there are those who are good shepherds. In your life, you need to find good shepherds. In your life, you need to find good shepherds. How do you know if somebody's a good shepherd? From what we read or just thinking about it, what would make a good shepherd? Y'all thought y'all go without answering questions, but it's not going to happen. We'll sit here all night. Okay, somebody that even if they know they're going to probably tick you off a little bit or make you mad, not arrogantly, but they're still going to say, look, I don't want to have to tell you this, but you might want to, yeah. One that'll hold you accountable for what stuff you know you need to do. It's not something you don't know, it's something you, like, come on now, you know the sacrifice they're willing to make. Yeah, what they're willing to do, take time, take you to lunch and everything. If they say, hey, let me take you to lunch tomorrow, let's talk about this. You're looking for people who are willing to pay a price for the relationship, but won't compromise what's best for you. How do you know this person's in your life? What's the results of this person? They're always there. They're always one phone call away. You grow when you're around them. What can be the flaw of this person, having this person? They can be around you when they don't want to. It's like, yeah. You'd be amazed. You'd be amazed how much stuff people try to hide when I knock on the door. Preacher's here. We just collect them bottles, Pastor Lott. We don't really drink any of them. We just collect them. Like, why is all of them half empty? We just collect. They're pretty bottles, Brother Lott. They're pretty bottles. Here's the weakness of that person. Can you run over that person? Now, let me explain something that's really hard that you got to learn. Just because you can run over them doesn't mean that that's a good thing. See, you can get, let's say your mom. Man, you can mistreat her and whatever, and at the end of the day, she's still going to invite you to Thanksgiving. You're going to have certain people in your life, and there's great strengths to having these people because they're going to tell you the truth, they're going to love you, but the weakness that seems like sometimes that we as when we're pulling away is that we take it for granted. Well, Pastor Lott, if I need him, I can call him. And sometimes we wait way too long before we call. Sometimes we like, well, I know what they told me, but this is what I want to do. And then when it doesn't work, guess who we go call again? Pastor Lott. Pastor Lott, I did what you told me not to. And I'm like, well, come on, let's go eat. Let's talk about it. Let's see how big a hole we got to get out of now, bro. Been easier just to do what they said. But they weren't ugly to you, were they? They didn't make fun of you, and they didn't embarrass you, and they just said, man, you really need to do this. But it's that one calling you, well, you chicken? That's the one you listen to. You scared? You ain't going to live forever. Only the good die young. Whatever phrase your buddies used. What's the worst that can happen? Shall we go down the list? See, your real friends don't say that. You ought to try that. What's the worst that could happen? They don't say that. They look at you like, I know you're going to be mad, but don't do that. Because this is going to happen. So in your lives, you need to be able to realize as we grow as Christians, we want to become those kind of people. We want to become people that can not only live ourselves, not only stay attached ourselves, not only be helpful to people, but to our lives become benefits to others. That's leadership. So I'm telling you, as you're growing, you're going to say things to people and they're going to feel like they run over you, but that's okay. You keep loving them. Because that is the role that Jesus was totally run over. Hung on a tree. Everybody bailed on him. But that's okay. Jesus' last words, Lord, forgive them. They don't even know what they're doing. That's a true shepherd. So, let me see if I can ask you a few questions here. I got a few more. These aren't on your sheet. Number one, I want you to put down here now 1 through 5. 1 being, nah, that's not me. 5 being, yes, that's me. And if you're somewhere in between, put it down. 1 being, not at all. 5 being, over the top. I am continually thankful, a thankful person, because I know God has treated me with great grace. I am a thankful person. Don't think about it long. Just write it down. You'll keep giving yourself better scores if you think about it long. You know, I'm not that bad. Just boom. It's like, oh, yeah, no. All right. I am aware of my own weakness, number 2, and sin. And I admit it to others and seek God's forgiveness. Is that something you do on a regular basis? Number 3, I often pray to for God's direction and help because I know how much I need Him and depend on Him. My phone messed up. I try to follow and honor Jesus in the things I do and to serve others. I try. I try. Number 4, I try to humbly follow and honor Jesus in the things I do to serve others. Number 5, I find that people flourish around me as they enjoy the grace and acceptance I offer them. Do people flourish around you? Because there's 2 things, and this is on your list. So, you got it? Anybody get a 20 or above? Yeah, if you did, raise your hand. That's good. That's good. That's where you want to be. You want to be somewhere in that 4 or 5 range. You don't want to be 2s and 3s because ultimately you want to be someone that others can be around, know they're going to hear the truth. When you get down, you're somebody who's going to run to God because you ain't got nowhere else to run. It's becoming, I am healthy enough to be able to deal with other people. I'm healthy enough to be able to deal with other people. Until I'm healthy, I can't. When I go away on my breaks and stuff, you know why I go away? I'm not healthy. I might tell you the truth, but it's just the truth. It ain't got no tear to it, no more love. It's just like, listen, dummy, we done had this conversation 12 times. And I'm going to hit you with a shovel if you don't hurry up and get this. I'm like, you know, I might need a break. I might need a break. And Lisa's like, yeah, like a month ago. 2 things will happen when you become this person. The people around you will feel freedom. So when I'm around, one of the key things I want is for anyone, no matter where they are, to feel the freedom to be able to share with me, talk with me. Even though it may hurt, even though, hey, pastor's not going to throw me under the bus. He's not going to post me on Facebook. He's not going to preach me in next week's sermon. He cares about me. And if we all become those kind of people, that's where the early church grew, because you had all these mature people that were loving on people and caring for people and praying for people. And what we have become is a group that puts it all on one person, the preacher. And we wonder why our churches aren't strong. Because we were all meant to be mature. We were all meant to be those people that when somebody's around us, they feel free to share their stories. They feel free to say, hey, I got some stuff to take. Can I talk to you? Man, yeah. We'll see what God says about it. And the second thing is when they're around you, they flourish. When they're around you, because you're helping them make good decisions, their life is moving ahead. I got a chance yesterday. That's why I was gone the last day. I drove to Dallas, Texas. Tracy Rushing, who for the last 20-something years has been in trucking. She started in trucking. And she's worked her way up and just doing it putting God first, raising her boy. a whole 9 yards. And I got to go to Women in Trucking. It's the biggest organization that women have in trucking. It's like 8,000 or 10,000 of these people that was 2,000 people there when I was there. And she won Woman of the Year. It was the coolest thing in the world. And Elise said, hey, I think we ought to go. And my answer was, no, I'm not driving to Dallas, Texas. And then she kind of said, I think it would mean a lot to Tracy. It would mean a lot for her to. And I thought about it. I said, yeah, we need to go. So 9 hours there, 9 hours back. But when I came in and sat down on the front row, I mean, I'm talking about the front row. They walked me up and set me there, and she's giving her speech. Her friend looked over and said, you can see her countenance change when you walked in. And people asked me, who are you? I said, I'm her pastor. I'm her friend. I'm her pastor. And it was just the coolest thing because guess what? For all these years of praying, her working with kids she had adopted, and I mean, a lot of tears, a lot of good, but to watch her stand up there and to say, you know what? I'm flourishing. And she got to share, you know why I do this? Because I can share the message about Jesus in trucks faster than I could share it anywhere else. And I thought to myself, wow, I got to be a part of walking with her. I don't have her talents, I don't have her ability, but I got to walk with her and be her friend. I get to walk with you and be your friend and watch your lives go forward. That's the greatest blessing there is to when you grow up, to watch what your life does for others. That's why we grow. That's why we want to be mature. And I hope that you will make the first step in being a leader. Is learn to lead yourself. Quit beating yourself up about, I ain't here, I'm not there. You can get there. But where it's going to begin is, can I ask these questions like I gave you tonight? Can I answer them honestly? Can I grow, become better each day? So the questions again, let's go back over them and I'll let you go. Let's go back to our first page. And this sums it all up. What questions tomorrow morning or tonight are you going to ask yourselves? What questions are you going to ask yourselves? Is it going to be these? Am I successful? Am I achieving what I think I should? Am I getting recognition like I think I should? Am I becoming what I think I should? Am I doing as good as the others that I know? Am I knocking it out of the park? Can I walk in a room and make people, yeah. Is that my goal? Or is my goal, am I following Jesus? Am I doing what He called me to do? Am I becoming less while Jesus is becoming more? Those two sets of questions determine where your life is going to go. For me, I like the last three. The last three has made all the difference in my life. Any questions? Bow your heads and let us pray. Father, it's not just that you want to get us in your family or you just want to save us. But Father, what you want to do more than anything else is you want to watch us grow into the children you see. These strong children, leaders. And we think it comes from the outside, things we do and our accomplishments. But Lord, before Jesus had ever done anything, when He went to be baptized by John and John put Him under the water, and when He came up, the skies opened and a voice spoke. Jesus had not raised a dead person. Jesus had not hung on the cross. Jesus had not done anything that anybody could see. And yet your voice from heaven said this, "This is my beloved Son, in whom I'm well pleased." Because God, you saw what was on the inside before everybody else saw it on the outside. Father, let us each day learn to love you, walk with you, be close to you. Let us each day become less so you can become more. And let us each day grow into the person you want us to be. So that one day somebody walks up and they share with us, they need our prayers, they need our help. Father, thank you. In Jesus' name, amen. God bless you. Hey, go give that old devil fits.